Everyone, welcome back to the Jays Put Down. I'm your host, Jay Gay, here with Aaron Freeman, host of Locked On Falcons Podcast. And today we're going to be recapping the Falcons' Monday night win over the Buffalo Bills, 24-14 last night. Just a standout performance from the defense. Offense played great as well. Bijan played great. So, Aaron, first off, thanks for coming on the show today. And what are your thoughts watching the Falcons ball out like that on Monday Night Football last night?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I kind of went into the game with low expectations. I was hoping that they would play a competitive game, but I didn't really have that much optimism or confidence that they would be able to pull off a win. I figured, okay, it'll be close and it'll come down to the wire, and then, Josh Allen will probably do some Josh Allen things, and that will sort of get them a win. And if that's the outcome, then that's a good enough outcome for me, given where my perception of the Falcons were, which is kind of more that middle of the pack sort of NFL team, and my perception of the Bills being, one of the 3 to 5 best teams in the league. And so it was kind of looking for a moral victory, and then you got a legit victory with the team playing as good as I can remember seeing them play in a long time in the first half of the game, completely controlling that first half, and then doing just enough in the second half to avoid the classic Falcons second half letdown that we have grown to accustomed to. But there were certainly several moments in the second half where I was like, oh, here we go, here we go. But they were able to pull it off. And it was, again, I think one of the more impressive wins I've seen from this team, in a really a very long time. I think the stat was that they hadn't hosted a Monday night game since 2017 or something like that. And so
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like, oh, like, it was 8 years in the making, and it was 8 years well worth the wait.
Yes, yeah. In that last Monday night game, by the way, was against the Giants at home. Eli came to town, Saquon came to town. We beat them then. But last night, Bills came to town, Josh Allen came to town, and we beat the Bills. And so, man, I do want to talk here about the defense first because they really were the star last night to me. I mean, 4 sacks against Josh Allen, holding the Bills to 2 of 9 on third down. You forced two interceptions from him. D. Offer got one. D'Angelo Malone got one late in the game. So, man, how impressive has this defense been through the first 6 weeks of the year? Like, what, number two in the NFL in total defense? I mean, and how good they were last night. What stood out to you from them?
Yeah, man. I wasn't necessarily drinking the Kool-Aid on the Falcons defense based off of the first 4 games. They absolutely played well, don't get me wrong. But I was just like, what are they going to look like against a real quarterback, against a real offense, as opposed to some of the offenses that they had been facing in the first month of the season? And they absolutely answered that with how they played. They were able to keep Josh Allen scrambling in check. As you mentioned, they were able to get reliable pressure and make him look uncomfortable. And that's what you want to see from a top-notch defense going up against top-notch quarterbacks like Josh Allen, the defending MVP, and making those guys uncomfortable, making them have a tough night, and people going back and second guessing, like, oh, what's wrong with Josh Allen? What's going, all that stuff, and like all of that is coming from the Atlanta Falcons defense, which is just a crazy thing to say, because I don't think I've ever experienced that in my entire life. Even going back, like 20 years when the Falcons had good defenses back then, like I don't even know if we could say like, oh yeah, we really took it to whoever was the best quarterback in the league, Kurt Warner or whoever it was back then. But it you see, and the thing about the Falcons defense is like it's not one individual player that is like, oh, their defense is built around this one guy going out there and being this dominant player. It's a team defense, it's individual players. You see it on the front, you see it on the second level at the linebacker position with Caden Ellis and Divine Diablo. You got a big boost from AJ Terrell's return in the cornerback position, and you're seeing all those guys in the secondary making plays as well. So it's great team defense, and I think that's what makes it unique and special, to see the Falcons be able to pull this off without necessarily having that one sort of superstar player that like you look at a team like the Green Bay Packers with Micah Parsons or something like, you're like, oh yeah, of course their defense is really good because they have Micah Parsons, and that guy is just wrecking games every single snap and every single week. And the Falcons don't necessarily have that player, and they're still being able to play a high level of defense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, especially with how they were able to keep him from taking the game over with his legs. As we know, Josh Allen, that's his bingo card. That's what he does. And the Falcons were able to contain him for the most part pretty well. And their rush lanes, things like that. You could tell those were things they practiced, they worked on during the time they were off. Making sure that they keep that rush integrity, which coaches talk about when you're playing against quarterbacks that can run, like Josh Allen. Um, you know. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great game from them. Offensively, I mean, Bijan Robinson. Dude. I mean, well, over 200 scrimmage yards. I mean, just that 81-yard rushing touchdown. I mean, and stayed in bounds. Um, you know, Bishop couldn't bring him down. I mean, but so Bijan, man, what's is he the best like player in the NFL? Like Raheem Morris keeps saying. Do you agree?
I mean, after last night, it's hard to make an argument against him coming off a game like that and a performance like that in the national spotlight, going up against one of the best teams in the league. He was probably the best player on the field last night, and it's funny to me because like as someone who was like OG, Bijan is special type of person. Like when he does stuff like that, I'm like, of course he does. Like, why are people, sitting here shocked that Bijan Robinson is doing incredible things? But at the same time, it is worth acknowledging, the incredible things that he is doing on the football field. And you know, I know going into the summer, I was definitely on the bandwagon of like, okay, he could have one of those Christian McCaffrey type seasons, a Saquon Barkley S type season, maybe not the 2000 rushing yards, but that type of impact to sort of be the clear cut RB1. And then when Caleb McGarry went down with an injury, I was like, well, I don't know if that's going to happen now because the Falcons lost one of their best run blockers. And I don't know if the run game is going to be to the level that it needs to be for Bijan to have that type of season. And maybe he can make up a little bit of it in the passing game, but he's more than made up for it in the passing game and being that sort of dual threat weapon. And the run game is still working, and a lot of it has to do with just Bijan being Bijan. It's not to say the blocking has been poor or anything like that, but like you saw it on that 81-yard touchdown where it's just like you get him on that second level and he's able to show the contact balance, tiptoeing down the sideline, break a tackle, and all that stuff, and making those big explosive plays that we just haven't seen on the regular basis that we thought we were going to see immediately coming into the league, and we didn't quite get that. We got consistent production from Bijan the first 2 years in the NFL, but now you're getting the explosive plays in addition to that consistent production, and that's what's to me allowed him to jump into the conversation of not just being the best running back in the league, but potentially being one of the best players in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and he had a great night. I mean, he's just a guy like you love his character, man. He's doing that post game interview. He's giving glory to God, and he's just he's a team guy. You can tell, and you love that guys like that in your locker room. I think that's him and Drake, Mike. Like those, they all seem like guys like that. Speaking of Drake and Mike, they had a great connection last night. I mean, Michael Penix is getting there.
Yeah.
I think I think that's the best way I can put it. He's getting there. Each week he's getting there, and this was only what his seventh or eighth start
Eighth,
in
yeah.
the league. So I mean, what did you like from him? What you dislike from him? I mean, was there? I also think Zach Robinson. mm, he shortchanged him a little bit on some things. I still think Zach is still getting there too. So what are your thoughts on like that as far as offense?
Yeah, I think, with the offense, I did not have the highest opinion of Zach Robinson's play calling after last year. I was very vocal about that. And to me, I've liked what I've seen, especially the last two games from the Falcons from Zach Robinson. So to me, I look at it more as a positive because I was starting so low, and I'm like, okay, like that. This is legit progress for Zach Robinson, and we'll see how this grows over the next couple of months to finish out the season. So I'm probably a little higher on Zach Robinson now because I started out a little bit lower on Zach Robinson than maybe other people were. And so I think other people are sort of in that mixed bag area. And, when it comes to Michael Penix, yeah, I think getting there is a great way to describe it. Like you're seeing progress each week. You're seeing a young quarterback still growing into the position. I know there was a lot of hype for Michael Penix coming into the season. Maybe I contributed a little bit to that on Locked On Falcons with all the
We're the only
pumping
one,
and
man.
all that stuff. But it's one of those things where like I think what always gets lost in the shuffle is that these are young quarterbacks and they're still figuring things out, and it usually takes these guys 3 to 5 years to kind of figure this stuff out to really sort of hit their stride. You look at a player like Josh Allen across the field. Like if you go back and you watch Josh Allen his first 2 years in the NFL, you're like, this guy does not have it, right? You get some high level plays, you get some very low level plays. It's very volatile. And then in his third year they really started to figure it out. And as you said, we're only 8 starts into Michael Penix's career. It's one of those things where I feel like I think the sky is still the limit. It's not going to automatically get there to the degree that I think a lot of other people want it to be. Like, oh, he's instantly going to be this Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes esque MVP caliber quarterback in his second year, that type of thing. CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels, year one breakouts and all that stuff. He's still, yeah, he's still a work in progress, but the progress that I think he's shown so far this season to me is very impressive. And the other thing that stood out, you mentioned Drake London, like he was pretty much the entirety of the Falcons passing game outside of a couple of throws to Bijan Robinson in this game. And I know he got off to a little bit of a slow start in those first 3 games and then kind of had a breakout game against Washington and continued that against Buffalo. And a lot of the questions, that I didn't necessarily have about Drake London, but I know other people did, is like, is he a true number one that you can kind of build your offense around? And I think what you saw on Monday night against the Bills was like he was the Falcons passing game. And yes, you can build your offense around him. And that connection between Penix and him, which was something that was very strong in the training camp that we didn't quite see, manifest in the first 3 games of the season, but it's manifesting right now. And we'll continue to watch these guys develop that chemistry. And hopefully, this is the beginning of what we will talk about as the next great quarterback wide receiver partnership that we've had in Atlanta that we've grown accustomed to over the years. Going back to Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, Matt Ryan and Roddy White. You go back to the run and shoot days in the 90s. I know that's before your time, Jay, but all those other great quarterback wide receiver pairings. I think, we're seeing the start of something that potentially, can stack up with any of those, years down the road. But you're seeing sort of the early signs of that is making, that very promising as we sit here today.
Yeah, no, yeah, man, you're right. I mean, and I was fortunate enough to watch at least Matt to Roddy, Matt, and Julio. Especially in the latter years of both of their times here. Fortunately, it didn't go as well. But with Mike and Drake, I think it can go great as well. That can go great also. It can go further than that. I mean, I think it's just, and it's sometimes like I do felt Mike probably should have. You know. I mean, granted, who else was out there for him to throw to? See, a lot of people were like talking about, like, oh, he's locked in on Drake. He should have, like, Drake had a great game, but maybe he should have, probably looked at other people too. I'm like, Casey Washington wasn't catching anything. Um, like, I mean, Kyle Pitts had a couple opportunities, but I mean, he fell on one of them. So I don't know. So I mean. But yeah, it's getting there. And then, like I said, for Zach, I mean, I think Zach's doing much better than he had been before. Maybe the moving to the sideline did help
Mhm.
for him, and he, although had some questionable calls last night as well. Some things I think we're still kinking out offensively. I just want us to be like, I need the offense and defense to be right here, man. Like, can we just be right here for a complete game? I think. We're close. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah,
So
well, it wouldn't be the Falcons if there wasn't something that they
of
could.
course not. It's like, like it's like we can't, like we have to falcon this up. It's like it's always that's the term that's in the dictionary. It's like, when this game's going too good, right? I mean, heck, the Drake stepping out of bounds before so but anyway, a great game, man. Great game. So now we look forward to San Francisco, they're injured and depleted as well, but still gonna be a tough bout. So what's the keys for the team to get the win there next week on Sunday Night Football, the primetime game?
Yeah, the thing with San Francisco, their through line has always been their ability, Kyle Shanahan's ability to dial up explosive plays. They're sort of, excuse me, key playmakers. Christian McCaffrey, obviously, as you mentioned, they have not been as healthy this year and last year. And so the usual 49ers dynamic explosive offense hasn't been manifesting. But you don't want them to have the classic get right game where
Yeah.
a team plays the Falcons and suddenly just figures it all out. And it's like all the things that we've been trying to do, we finally were able to do against the Falcons. You saw that a couple of weeks ago against Carolina, and so you don't want to fall into that trap again. So I think that's going to be a key. Obviously, keeping Christian McCaffrey in check. We'll see, George Kittle, the reports are that he might come back, so that will be a big boost to that offense. I don't know what Brock Purdy's status is at this point in time, but Mac Jones has been decent from what I have seen, sort of filling in for these last couple of weeks. And certainly if the defense doesn't play, the defense has an emotional letdown after the big game on a short week against Buffalo, that will be an opportunity for them to attack. And it'll be interesting to see how they attack this 49ers defense. They do not have their two best players in Nick Bosa and Fred Warner on that side of the ball, and so it makes you feel like there's a favorable matchup there. But the challenge for the Falcons is not, oh, do they not have the talent to beat the 49ers or exploit the 49ers and win some of these matchups? It's just really going to boil down to having that emotional letdown coming off of this big Bills win on a short week in prime time, going on the road, all that stuff that is just the normal rigmarole of the NFL season, the ups and downs, that roller coaster, and not having a dip after this peak, I think is really going to be the big challenge for this team. Because if they play the same way or similar way that they've played the last 2 weeks, they should be in a position to win this game. In the end, and hopefully they will be able to take care of business. But the worry you have to have is maybe they come out flat and that sort of thing, and that allows the 49ers to sort of get up on them and sort of dictate that matchup, unlike the last couple of weeks where the Falcons have been the team that has been able to dictate those matchups at home.
Yeah, yeah. On the road, it's gonna be a good test. See how we perform on the road. Typically, when we won at Minnesota, Carolina, we know what happened. But so I mean, listen, I just like everybody's been like on Falcons discourse and media to keep dropping the Carolina game. And I'm like on our heads, I'm listen, like every team has those weeks.
Yeah.
So and it's like, it's like can't like, oh, the Falcons defense played great. It's like, yeah, but they gave up 30 to Carolina. I'm like, how many times are we gonna keep like
It yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you want to forget about the game, but then your brain goes like, oh yeah, that game also happened. And it's like, hopefully the Falcons can stack enough good performances like they have the last couple of games that we will forget about. We won't be able to keep bringing that up, but we're still just a little too close to that. And so it always kind of comes back and you're like, oh yeah, they did lose. They did get shut out by the Carolina Panthers a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, forget about that. Let's focus. That's old stuff. Yeah, don't worry about old stuff. Let's focus on the new stuff.
exactly, exactly. In the NFC South, we see the Bucks where they are. They're playing phenomenal. Baker's playing phenomenal. You got the Falcons, and then of course Carolina and right behind them. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely 49ers is gonna be a huge game. Hopefully the Falcons will have everybody. I don't know. I know Darnell was out with the injury. I don't know exactly what the injury was. I'm sure you could provide some more information on that, what he exactly was out with
It was a hamstring.
last night. Hamstring. Okay. Okay. Well, don't know what his status is gonna be for next week. Hopefully, he can return. I know Ray was a healthy scratch.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, so that's really the main thing I want to talk about, Aaron. But yeah, before we go, any last thoughts, man? You know, we get off win against the Bills. Now the team is 3-2. Any last comments, thoughts?
Yeah, I would say on the injury front, probably the main injury I'd be concerned about is Jake Matthews. Raheem Morris gave an update today, um, on Tuesday, that he's day to day, but you do wonder about the short week. On that front, he did miss the second half of this Bills game, and so that to me is probably the more concerning injury at this point in time. If he's limited in any way, now obviously, as I mentioned earlier, because they don't have Nick Bosa, like less of a concern than it would be because, boys, if Nick Bosa was playing this game against a backup offensive tackle, it's like, oh, pray for Michael
Yeah.
Penix. But I think it does sound like Jake is on track to return for this 49ers game, but that is going to be, to me, the main focus going into this game. What is the status of their left tackle? Because without Jake, this offense, like, they already lost Caleb McGarry. They lose Drew Dalman this all season. It was like, the offensive line has been fine, but if they lose Jake Matthews, that would be a another potential devastating blow, and that would definitely impact how they can attack, offensively moving forward. So, but it does sound like at least the news today is that we're positive and optimistic about Jake Matthews' status. So hopefully the Falcons will dodge that bullet.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, yes, thank you, Aaron, for coming on, and recapping the Falcons win, and giving us insight there, of course, on Jake Matthews and Darnell Mooney. Appreciate that. And yes, we hope the Falcons can get another primetime win on Sunday night against the 49ers coming up. But make sure you guys check out Aaron's work on Locked On Falcons. Great stuff he has there. Daily content for Atlanta Falcons football. Check us out here on YouTube and stuff. And we will see you next time on Jay's Put Down. Aaron, we'll see you later. Thank you.